In closing, she looks earnestly at the crowd, and she advises each and every one of us, don't give until it hurts. Just give until it feels good. Isn't that great? Thank you, Karen. This story vividly drives home the important lesson of giving without putting yourself in jeopardy. Don't give until it hurts. Just give until it feels good. Karen was talking about maintaining balance between helping others and taking care of yourself. The message I took away, and I invite you to also get, is that you can give to and help others without hurting yourself. Karen was talking about self-care. Thank you, Karen. Right? It's so important. Self-care is so important. It's the foundation of everything. If you're going through a struggle right now, take care of yourself first, and then deal with the struggle and the other people. Take care of yourself first. It's not selfish, it's selfless. Because I'll tell you something, if you don't take care of your own challenges and your own problems, they're going to become somebody else's problems. They're going to roll downhill to somebody else, somebody who potentially loves you and doesn't want to see you suffer, and they're going to take that on. And maybe that's the worst thing that they could be doing. So you don't want to do that. Self-care. Now, when we talk about the Finkelstein factor, now that we've got the foundation of self-care there, let's talk about how the Finkelstein factor manages these challenges. And I really broke it down into 3 main steps. I'm going to share those steps with you as much as I can in our limited time here this evening. So the first step is all about, number 1 is when you think of a challenge, and I invite you right now to think about something that you've been struggling with, something in your life. It might be relationship issues or career issues or maybe just time management issues or something about something in your life that you're finding difficulty handling right now, whatever it is. The first thing that you want to do, the step number 1, is acknowledge the loss. You might be saying to me, loss? What do you mean loss? If you're in a difficult situation of some sort, you're losing something. Part of that sadness is bubbling up because you're mourning something that you wish you had that you don't. It's a loss of some sort. Let me give you an example. And I've done these workshops with people all across Canada. And so the examples that I'm giving you are real life examples from people. Here's one that some of you might relate to. Suppose you're in a job. You love this job. It's so great. It really pulls on your confidence right to the edge of, oh, can I do it? Can I do it? Yes, I can. It feels so good. Love it. And then one day, the organization is doing what we call a reorg. Yeah. And you know where that ultimately leads? Well, some positions get chucked out. And suppose it's your blessed job is on the table and it's gone now. You get the letter, you've lost your job. So what is it that you've lost? Now, the first obvious answer is, well, I've lost my job. Yeah, but what does that really mean? So you look at it and you think, well, I've lost income, right? You lose income when you lose a job. But what does the income mean? What does that give you that you no longer will have? Well, it gives you more choices, gives you more holidays, gives you more time, family time, gives you more luxuries, gives you more pampering things, gives you more self-care potentially. It gives you things that money can offer you. And then you look at other aspects, like what about the job? Well, you're losing the association with that organization, and maybe that gave you some status. Maybe that gave you some confidence. Maybe you're losing confidence. Maybe you're losing your group of friends and colleagues. And that's a sadness. That's a loss. So whatever the challenge is that you're dealing with right now, acknowledge the loss. Because until you really put words around what it is that you're losing, you won't be able to really let it go. putting words around that loss helps you explain to yourself, perhaps for the first time, why it hurts so much. And then, once you've done that, the real gift is then for those in your inner circle or those who care to listen, you are able to enunciate to others why it hurts so much. Remember how I mentioned that I invited people to ask me, or to answer my question when I asked about what would you like me to read from the book? What do you think people would find interesting, I asked them. And when it came to the chapter about loss, acknowledge the loss, wow, whew, lots of loss too. And people had never really looked at it from the viewpoint of, they never really thought of putting words around it and describing it, putting it in a way that they could for the first time ever, they could really understand why that hurt. And this is what they suggested I read to you. Some people may believe that admitting hurt is a sign of weakness. I think we all know people like that, right? I believe quite to the contrary. It's an act of strength. It speaks of someone strong enough to face his or her fears, perhaps for the first time ever. Doing so is left to the formidable amongst us who have the chutzpah. Chutzpah. Finkelstein, right? I had to do that. Courage and confidence. Experiencing hurt makes you human and relatable. Admitting a loss doesn't make you a loser. It readies you to win. You feel the way you do for a reason, maybe many reasons. It is exceptionally validating to enunciate your loss. It helps you and others understand what you're going through. Acknowledging your losses offers explanation for your sadness, your anger, or whatever emotion you find yourself experiencing as a result of your pain. It also builds a bridge inside yourself, between the hurt and the healing. I have shared the next story from the platform when speaking at conferences, and without fail, it is met with tears and hugs from attendees who have lived similar experiences. They thank me for enunciating what they have endured and lost and never had the words for. And I am only able to do this because of this process I'm now sharing with you. Regardless of the heartache you may be experiencing now, the difficulty, see if you relate to any of this sense of loss. And I want to tell you, before I launch into this story, I debated with myself if I should share this with you tonight. But we're all good friends. I know almost each and every one of you on a personal basis. Some of you, oh my gosh, we've been in each other's wedding parties. Some since kindergarten. Yay! My kindergarten girls. Don't they look fabulous? Come on. So I just want to tell you that when I talk about loss, I'm not going to keep you there for a long time. That's not where you want to live. I'm going to pull you out of it in a moment here, but this is a really important step, and it's one that sometimes we skip over in our anxiousness to help people and to get to the solutions. We don't acknowledge the loss. So I'm going to share with you this one. Ready? When I am in my teens, I can't wait to start babysitting. As a high school student, my summers are filled. Whoa.
It's okay.
I have some family members here. Okay. And they're part of the solution. As a high school student, my summers are filled being a playground counselor. Throughout university, I tutor kids. Having nieces and a nephew. In 3 different cities, I travel several times a year in every season from Ottawa to North Bay and Niagara region to be an active part of their young lives. I love children and envision
as being a mom with 2, maybe 3 kids, life has different plans. 4 miscarriages and a couple medical interventions later, nothing, no children. My husband and I explore the domestic adoption option, and though we believe we have everything to offer, supportive families on both sides, a child-friendly home built and located with children in mind, steady jobs and financial security, and we enthusiastically note to the social worker doing the home study that we would welcome a child of any age, race, color, or creed, even sibling pairs. We never received one phone call about a match in 4.5 years. When I turn 40, it's no celebration. I feel our window of opportunity is closed tight. In fact, I think it's nailed shut. My life has taken a twist I didn't expect. I begin to consider my losses and why I feel depressed. My list is long and tear-stained. Here are a scant few of the highlights. Loss of commonality with friends and relatives who have kids. Loss of seeing what a great father my husband would have been. Loss of leaving a vestige of myself behind. Loss of sharing life lessons. Loss of identity and the person I thought I would be. And those are just a few. After listing all these losses, a magic thing happens. After my 4th miscarriage, I decide to no longer silently suffer. I decide to share my losses. Instead, I tell some close colleagues really what happened in my life and the sense of loss that I'm feeling. Them knowing the pain helps them to understand and validate my sadness, and this greatly helps me move through it. This exercise of defining my loss definitely leads me to understand why I felt profoundly sad at the time. And from moment to moment, sometimes it'll hit me. Even now, that's how profound that loss is. It leads me to understand why I felt sad at the time, because I was giving up a lot. It validates my heartbreak and gives me words to comprehend myself, and if and when necessary, to explain it to others I trust. It also provides me with the insight to be compassionate to others living a similar situation. In fact, I've had people thank me for putting into words what they were unable to. Defining your loss helps you and others understand why you feel and are reacting the way you do. Give it a try. It's liberating. Your turn. What is your loss? In your situation, what is it that you believe you're losing, and why does that scare you? What is it that you're afraid of? Your pain buttons and list of losses will include both actual happenings and potential events that worry you. Describe present-day realities as well as concerns you're afraid may manifest in future. No need to explain or justify your worries. If they're a concern to you, they're real. If it's a loss to you, it's real. They don't need to be founded on logic. If it bothers you, if you feel you're losing or will likely lose something, write it down, share it with a friend. Avoid telling yourself that something on your list is foolish and shouldn't be there. Of course it should be there. If it's your loss, it's real. It's causing you pain. Validate that voice inside you. Let it be heard and commend yourself on admitting, perhaps for the first time, why you hurt so badly. Acknowledge the loss. Oh, bless your heart. Acknowledge good friends. Yeah. Thank you. Now, your story, your loss, might be very similar to mine, or it might be very, very different. But whatever it is that's challenging you right now, it's a loss of some sort. So define it, put words around it. What is it that you feel like you're losing? because that will move you one step closer to being able to let that go. And right now I want to talk about step 2 in the Finkelstein factor. That step 1 was a tough one. That acknowledged the loss. I apologize if that was too much emotion for some of you. It really is. You know, it surprised me too. So step 2 is what I call the 4 flipping questions. And what step 2 is all about is flipping the negative, how you're viewing something, into viewing it as something positive. Now there are 4 questions. I'm not going to get into all of them now, but the second question is this, is how could it be worse? So whatever your situation, Emily's taking a picture and I'm dabbing my nose. How could it be worse?
It'll be on the blooper reel.
It'll be on the blooper reel. Oh, my life is a blooper reel. So how could it be worse? Now I remember saying to one person once when I was helping her through a difficult situation, she said to me, Marion, and she explained about this difficulty at work, this bully boss, and I said to her, well, you know what, how could it be worse? And she said to me, how on earth is that going to make it better? Talking about how it could be worse, right? And I said, well, just play with me for a bit, just like work with me here, just play along. How could it be worse? And she said, well, I guess it could be worse if I didn't have colleagues who understood what I'm going through. Okay, good, give me more. Well, I suppose it could be worse if we didn't have HR policies that protect us, that really I have something to lean into here. And excellent, that's good, yeah, that could be worse, yeah. And how else? Give me one more. And she said, I suppose it could be worse if I wasn't the age I am right now with the experience under my belt that I have, that I might not have the confidence to deal with this situation. I'm like, that's excellent. Yes, it could be worse. So here's the key. This is what I talk about in the book, and what I'm about to tell you is, I had one colleague say to me, this is the most useful thing, and it has changed the way that she speaks and the way that she thinks. And it's 2 really small words. And those words are, when you're really upset and you really want to say something, and you just, it's 2 words bubble up, and the 2 words are, at least. At least. So what you do is you talk about what the pain is, and then you say, well, at least, and you flip how it could be worse into at least. So in that woman's situation, it sounded like this. Well, I have a bully boss. At least, I have colleagues who understand where I'm coming from. They get it too. Well, this bully boss picks on me at meetings. At least I have HR policies I can lean into. And this boss, this bully boss, really nasty. But you know what? At least I've got some experience under my belt, and I'm pretty sure I can handle it. At least. So I'm going to read you a little bit about at least right now. And this story, harkens to a travel trip that Steve went on. At least. Now, let's have a little fun. This next example is lighthearted and snitched from my husband's experiences. I hope he talks to me after this. It's not life-altering event, it's just a small incident that demonstrates how this thinking of how could it be worse helps you cope with and kicks in almost immediately once you get used to adopting this mindset. When our nephew is in his early 20s, Steve decides to surprise Josh with a week-long golf holiday down south. Oh, how they looked forward to some quality uncle-nephew time, as well as escaping our harsh, cold Canadian winters. Shortly after they check into the resort, Steve goes to the front desk and asks how to catch the courtesy shuttle bus to the nearby golf course. The friendly clerk explains that all he needs to do is reserve a time and go sit on the bench to wait. No problem. That certainly sounds easy enough, Steve thinks. So he requests a pickup later that day, in plenty of time. Josh, Steve operates on Jewish time, which means always early. I learned that with my in-laws. It's time 6 o'clock for dinner, they arrive at 5:30. Now I know. The friendly clerk explains, and so Steve reserves the bus. That certainly sounds easy. And in plenty of time, Josh and Steve go to their room, grab their clubs, proceed to wait on the designated bench, and wait. And wait. Long after the scheduled pickup hour, and afraid they would miss their tee-off time, they decide to walk instead, carrying their clubs all the way. After the game, Steve asks the pro shop at the golf course how to get back to the resort. The staff member explains all they need to do is do a telephone request via the phone right over there for the courtesy shuttle that is included for all their guests. Yeah. Steve picks up the phone and hears "See" on the other end. He requests the shuttle back to the hotel, and the voice on the phone explains that the shuttle will be there in 15 minutes. They wait 20, and then they walk. The story repeats itself for 7 days straight. They never catch the shuttle. Out of 14 possible lifts, they get none. Instead of bemoaning their misfortune, Steve chooses to acknowledge the fact that it could always be worse, with comments such as, "Well, at least we weren't waiting for a bus in winter weather. Thank goodness we're close enough to walk to the golf course, and it's a good thing we don't have a lot of heavy clubs in our bags." The additional good thing is this unlucky incident is a funny story that he tells others in future years. It's at this point in the story, when disturbing events occur multiple times, that many people will get angry and ticked off and want some sort of compensation. But some people would react by simply throwing up their arms in frustration and giving up. What would your reaction be? What has it been to similar situations? Instead of assuming a negative spiral, Steve chooses to see the humor immediately and guffaws at the situation. It becomes the daily joke between uncle and nephew, forever branding the memory of this trip with humor and appreciation. He and our nephew never find out why the shuttle goes astray, which only adds to the hilarity of the story as they recount to great peals of laughter at many family get-togethers, and they still do. So that idea of just flipping the negative into something positive, into using humor if you can, is such an amazing gift to have, such a strength to have. It's a gift that if you can get used to doing that, to seeing the humor, to thinking about the at least, it really helps with coping. Anybody who's ever golfed with me knows that I use the at least thing a lot. For example, well, I didn't go too far, but at least I hit it straight, right, Leah? Or, oh, darn, I hit it into the rough, but at least it's not in the sand trap. Try it. Try the at least. Next time when you're challenged with some sort of difficulty that you're faced with, think of the at least. Think of the negative. It's not that bad. It hasn't gone to that extent yet, and at least. It'll help you get through it. So now we're going on to the third step. The third step is potentially one of the toughest steps. And wow, again, when I ask people who have already purchased the book and read it, I ask them, tell me what has struck you the most about the book. Wow, this chapter on the loss, on the step 3, really amazed me. And it's all about letting go. Now, for the control freaks in the room, it's a concept where you release your death grip and you let something go. And what I'm talking about in this case is letting go of that pain that we talked about at the very first step. Letting go of that. And in the book, I give an exercise, it's called the Let Go Guide, where I offer 6 different questions to ask yourself, have you earned the right to let it go? Have you given it your best effort? Did you do the best you can? Do you need to do that piece, hang on to that piece? Or does that really belong to somebody else? Is it their piece that they need to take care of? So what do you need to do to let it go? It's potentially one of the toughest things that we learn in life. When you think about some of the pain and some of the wounds that you have, and when you scratch them, they start bleeding again, some of the relationships you have, perhaps some of the financial worries that you have, whatever your challenge is, what can you do to let it go? Have you done your best? Have you managed the situation as best as you can? Have you leaned into some expertise that maybe they can help you? Have you confided in somebody who can help you? What have you done so that you can earn the right to let it go? And I found out what one gentleman did to help let it go. And last week, when he was responding to my email out there asking, what do you think I should read? What pieces did you take away from this book that really touched you, that you thought really I should share with other people? And he mentioned a certain passage, which I'll share with you in a moment. But he sent me something that I will also share that was so amazing. I had no idea. And isn't that like life? You throw out this little pebble, and the ripples go out, and you never know who those ripples are going to touch. Each one of you are doing that here today. You're sending out little ripples. The people that you've met here tonight, the people that you conversed with today, the people that you serve, your clients who love you, all those people are touching your ripples. You never know how you're going to affect other people. And when I asked this gentleman, what about the chapter? He told me without doubt it was the letting go chapter. It was the chapter 8. He said there's one phrase in that chapter 8 I really loved, but the whole chapter just helped me release. And I'll read you right now what he suggested I share with you. This was the phrase that he loved. Hanging on to the past keeps you tethered to the ground. Hanging on to the past and pain prevents you from propelling yourself forward and flying high. You just can't do it. It's against the laws of physics. A hot air balloon can only elevate and move forward when its ties to the earth are released. You simply can't move forward into the future when you're hanging on to the past. Remember when you were a child playing on the monkey bars? Or when you had a cartwheel inside of you that you just had to get out? Think back to those monkey bars. You love gripping those rungs and you swing arm by arm. You're pushing yourself forward. Oh, that feeling of freedom and achievement as you reach to the other side. Then you hop off, jump down, go running back to the beginning, and you do it all again. Without realizing, you are learning a very key principle in life. You can't grab onto the bar in front of you and move forward until you let go of the bar behind you. You can't move forward. The metaphor perfectly illustrates the principle of letting go. Whenever I think about letting go, I'm reminded of the following story. I hope it resonates with you as much as it does with me and gives you insight into the people, places, and things that are holding you stationary and preventing you from moving forward. A good friend of mine, let's say her name is Maggie, because it is. No, it's really not. It's really not. Is in the midst of moving from her beautifully appointed 3-bedroom Ottawa home to a much smaller empty nest condo in downtown Toronto. Whole different lifestyle, right? It's huge huge lifestyle adjustment. She and her husband are leaving the home where they raised their 2 children who are now fully grown and on their own. These walls embrace more than 20 years of family memories. Steve and I share in those memories with many dinners, after golf beverages, and celebrations under this roof. One day, as I'm helping Maggie prepare for a huge garage sale that she was hosting, I take a look around in the basement, noticing all the price tags on all her cherished items. A twinge of sadness creeps over me, and I verbalize what I think might be Maggie's loss, suggesting it must be very difficult for you to say goodbye to all these things. Maggie replies with words that guide me still years later. She wisely says, "Marion, these things are anchors that are weighing me down. It's absolutely liberating to let go of them." Wow. Wow. That's it. It was like a splash of cold water on my face. Letting go is emancipating. That's emancipating, not constipating. That's a whole other type of letting go that we're not going to get into this evening, okay? Even though we do have nurses in the audience. But I'm going to share with you now what this colleague wrote to me just a couple days ago, when he told me that that chapter about letting go is the one that really spoke to him. This is direct email. The biggest message I got from reading The Finkelstein Factor was hanging on to the past keeps you tethered to the ground. And more generally, all of chapter 8 on letting go. My daughter and I have not spoken in 4 years. And I should preface by saying I asked his permission to share this story. And he said, if it will help others, by all means. Absolutely. My daughter and I have not spoken in 4 years. She and her husband have decided that I no longer get to see my grandkids. And they no longer have a grandfather in their lives. The other grandfather died a number of years ago. Without judging or blaming, it is what it is. I believe I have done a reasonable job of considering and acting along the lines of the Let Go Guide. That's those 6 questions I was talking about. I've apologized for my contributions to this situation, and I've been able to forgive myself and my daughter. But I know I can't afford to let one strained relationship suck all the emotional energy at the expense of so many other positive and mutually beneficial family relationships. So I'm working on letting go. I'm a work in progress, aren't we all? But I'm not letting go of hope. Things may change down the road. Who knows what the future has in store? I'm not looking for the bad guy in all this. The situation is bad. The people involved aren't. I do know that I have to be okay in and with myself if there's to be any hope of reconciliation. And your book has been immensely helpful in this regard. Thank you, Marion. Thank you for helping me let go. Wow. You wonder why I wrote the book. Wow, that's it. Amazing, right? The stories that people tell me after they read this book is unbelievable. And even those who don't read it, the stories, the challenges that people tell me, that they share with me, and the experiences that each and every one of you have, your challenges, your letting goes, your tough moments that you have faced dead on or that you're grappling with right now, I want you to know you're not alone. You're not alone. There's people out there and around you, perhaps sitting right beside you tonight, who are there for you. You're not alone. You probably never have been, but you might not recognize that. You're not alone. So I want to close with this final little ditty that I prepared just for you this evening. It's a special something, and it's something I have not done in years. Don't worry. It's all good. And that is, as a kid, I used to write poems a lot. In fact, some of
you might not know, my school friends might not know, some of you might know, that I've written over 100 songs and hundreds of poems. And I put my pen to paper to compose one for this evening. It is called, as you might guess, thank you, The Finkelstein Factor, the poem by Marion Grobb Finkelstein. Yes, no, don't applaud, just throw money. What to do when things go wrong, because you know they will. I put it all into a book. My goodness, what a thrill. Let's begin the journey of handling bad to worst. Remember, to help others, you start with self-care first. Step 1 is acknowledge loss. Put words around the pain, and now you finally understand, are able to explain. Step 2 is flipping questions to pull you from that hole, to breed a sense of gratitude and give you back control. Step 3, perhaps the hardest, is the place where you let go without the guilt and sad regret you may have come to know. A final note, remember, there is no magic wand. You can't control the circumstance, but choose how you respond. So next time when you hit a block, it really doesn't matter, for now you know just what to do. You've got the Finkelstein Factor. Thank you, all of you, and now I'm going to hand the floor back to my very capable MC and husband, Mr. Steve Finkelstein.
Thank you, that was great. So this is the time of the evening when we gather all the index cards to answer any question of Marion. Also, there should be some questions that came online as well. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Marion while we're waiting for those cards and those questions to come forward. And if you have something that you want to ask, write it down and pass it forward, and away we go.
Thank you. When I sent out an email to some people who have had the book or have spoken to me or know me, and I invited them to ask me questions about the book or the Finkelstein Factor, I received a few of them in advance by email, so I'm going to start by these questions. And as I'm going through them, it might spawn some additional questions, so feel free, if you have an index card, fill it in, just hold it up, and my very capable teammates will collect that from you. So, let's see, this is, what would you say to someone, thank you, what would you say to someone who is building a business and getting discouraged? Oh, that's a good one, right? So whether it's a business or any aspect of your life that you're getting discouraged in, my suggestion would be to build your tribe of support. Build people who think similarly to you, who are going to validate what you're going through. That's kind of that piece of the acknowledge the loss and the struggles. Be around some people who acknowledge that piece. It's important because the other thing about the acknowledge the loss piece too that I found very useful is when you're talking to somebody else going through a difficult time, it's useful to just listen to them talk about the loss first before you skip to the solutions. Sometimes people just need to talk. So find yourself a team, a support team of people who can help you and support you in the way of listening, in the way of providing skills and support and knowledge, expertise that you might need. And then follow the steps of the acknowledge the loss, and then look at what it is that you think that you are losing and how you can, your whole situation that you're finding so discouraging right now, what is it about that that you find really, how it could be worse, and how can you flip that? Because when you use those words, at least, it really helps plant fertile soil for seeds of gratitude, and it helps to change your perspective and give you energy to move forward. And then the final bit is the let go piece. Is if it's hurting in your business to
keep on hitting your head against a certain wall, then maybe that wall is not for you. Maybe that door is not for you. So consider options, build options, look at other options, and see that what you can do to let go of that piece of feeling that it's just not working out. And I want to leave you with this final thought, whoever asked that question, whether they're online or whether you're here, it's not anything about you failing. There is no failure, there's only feedback. So if what you're doing isn't working quite the way that you wanted to or expected it to, work with it and figure out a way to flip that negative into a positive. That's what I would suggest. Okay, here's another question. How do you practice, flipping negatives into, I have not seen these. How do you practice flipping negatives into positives in your own day-to-day life? How does it change your inner dialogue, your mood, your mental health? Well, I've mentioned this a couple times. And the number one thing that I find is, suppose you're lying in bed and it's just one of those days you're thinking, oh, man, there's so much I've got to do, I'm not sure I'm going to squish it all in there, and I really don't feel like getting out of bed. If it's one of those days. You can use two words, and those words are at least. Exactly. There were many days before I ran my own business, doing just this, that I would be in bed and I'm thinking, oh man, I gotta go into the office. But at least I've got a job. Or, oh man, this is the day I really have to wash my hair and I don't feel like it because I'm tired and I want to sleep in. But at least I've got hair to wash. You can think, so flip it into the at least. If you're in a state, you're in a funk, really try that at least thing. It's really, I would encourage all of you, try doing it. Try it tonight. When you find yourself slipping into some negative, do the at least thing. So that would be my tip for that one. And this one, this is good. Any advice for someone wanting to write a book? That's a good question, right? My suggestion would be, give yourself time. Lots of wine, lots and lots of wine. Speaking of which, the wine bar is open, so help yourself. My suggestion really is to decide on your target audience before you start writing. Decide who it is that you're writing for, and then write the book as if you're speaking to them with a glass of wine or a cup of tea, and you're having a chat with them. That's my style of writing, but it's really about your target audience. If that style relates to your target audience, then do it. So decide your target audience, and from there, everything will follow. The size of the book, the length of the book, the style of the book, the language of the book, the tone of the book. For example, this book, I wrote this book for everyday, ordinary people. And I wrote it for people who really don't like reading a whole lot. I know, because we live a lot online these days, and a lot of people get their information online. A lot of people don't like reading great big, thick novels. Now, some people do, great big novels or great big reference manuals and such, and that's fantastic. If that's your audience, by all means. My audience really didn't want a great big, thick something. They're on the run. A lot of them are professional speakers, as am I. Some of them are here this evening. And they're business people and everyday, ordinary people like all of us here. And they just want to take it and pop it into their knapsacks or their purses, ladies, right? See? Does that, right? You're on a flight, you want something to read on the flight, Rhonda? Yeah, there you go. You bring the book. Rhonda had a great story. May I tell the story? Okay. Rhonda was reading that book a couple weeks ago, flying out on whatever airline to visit her son in Calgary. And she's reading the book, and she's, flipping through the pages, and the person beside her is kind of doing one of these. They're kind of like, what are you reading there? So then the time came, for the refreshments, and they did the coffee and tea and cookies thing. And so Rhonda put her book down, so she could get the little tray out and get ready for the refreshments. And when she put the book down, the woman said, "Oh, do you mind if I take a look at that?" Rose said, "Sure, there you go." And so she took a look at it and she started flipping through, and she was a social worker.
Yeah.
Social worker. And she said, "Wow, you know what? I was a new immigrant coming to this country. And this book about just these techniques of just how to handle challenges and stuff, this would have been really useful for me, and I think it's going to be useful for some of the people that I work with." So she took a picture of the book, and there you go. That's how we touch each other's lives. It's just, it
And
happens.
she kept my book for an hour.
That's good. See, share the knowledge. That's great. Did you get to read it?
I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Excellent, good. So anyways, about writing the book, I would say definitely choose your target audience first, and everything else falls from that. And this one is, what advice do you have to stay focused on goals when you experience a lot of rejection along the path to success? Okay. Remember that story I shared with you about not having kids? That was one of my goals. Never even occurred to me that that wouldn't happen. Never even entered my mind. And when that didn't come to pass, wow, that goal, if you will, was out the window. I had to look at things differently, so I asked myself 2 questions. And this is what I would invite you to do if you're experiencing rejection or hardship along the way of whatever it is that you're trying to attain. Ask yourself 2 questions. Ask yourself, why was that goal important? And the second piece is, once you know the why, because that's your mojo, that's your motivation, figure out another how. So in my case, the why I wanted kids is I wanted to know that I made a difference in this world. I wanted to know that the lessons I've learned weren't going to die when I did. I wanted to know that somebody was going to be there to advocate for me when I wasn't able to advocate for me. I wanted all those things. I wanted to build a sense of support and community and belonging. And you know what I do is I get that every time I step on the platform, and I do, there goes that gracious moment. FINKELSTEIN Factor. But I get that. I get all those rewards when I do what I do. Every single time I step on a platform. And I share my knowledge. And I get to hear stories. And I know that I make a difference. And every story does have a happy ending, because even though I don't have kids, slight diversion, but even though I don't have kids, when my niece found out that she was going to have a baby about 9 years ago, she said to her mother, my sister, now I know you all know me as Marion, but my nieces and nephew call me Aunt May. And she turned to my sister and she said, you tell Aunt May there's more than one way to have a baby. And when she had her little baby girl, she and her husband named her Kaya May. Yeah, isn't that amazing? And I should add that wonderful niece is right here. And that would explain why I got a little verklempt earlier. That was why, because I'm looking in those gorgeous blue eyes of hers, you know, what are you going to do? So, okay, we have a few more questions here, and then we're going to do the door prize. So if I could have the tickets for the door prize. Okay. Your book gives us some great tough love. With the takeaway acid test, can you speak to a business owner doing pro bono work without doing it with resentment and boundaries, I guess is the question. So the acid test of, I'm thinking that this is about the self-care, taking care of yourself. I guess, is the question. If I'm not interpreting that correctly, feel free to speak to me later. I think that doing pro bono work is really important, and giving back is very important, but do it to the extent that, remember Karen's message, do it so it feels good, not so that you're hurting yourself. So I don't believe completely in altruism, in that people giving with nothing in return. There's always something in return, and sometimes that feel-good feeling is the thing, the gift that you're getting in return. That's all you need. So as long as you feel that it's fair, it's a fair exchange, then it's good. But if you pass the point and you're feeling resentment, don't do the pro bono work if it's going to hurt your business and you're going to feel resentful. And where can I learn more about the Finkelstein factor? What was the hardest step lesson for you to learn? Ooh, yeah, okay. I'll start with the last one. The hardest step for me to learn is the letting go piece. That's tough, you know? Tenacity is a real gift in certain circumstances. In other places, it's tough to let go and move forward. So for me personally, I find that one really tough. And where can I learn more about the Finkelstein factor? Well, you know what? Yeah, I'll tell you where you can learn more, because we have a door prize coming up, and this is exactly how you can learn more about the Finkelstein factor, because the door prize is, I'm developing an online 4 or 5 week course once a week online that is going to be all about the Finkelstein factor, where I walk you through it, and it's a sense of community, and everybody will have a private Facebook page that you can go on and share if you wish or not. It'll have live Facebook, and I'm going to sell it next year for regular price, but for this year I'm going to offer it at special prices. So this particular, how can you learn more about the Finkelstein factor? Next year I'm going to sell it for, I'll just tell you the figures, $197 for that course. But for my people who are on my e-news list and my clients already, I'm going to do it for $79. But for the people here, to honor you, and because you're here, and I really respect that, and I want to help you as much as I can too, I'm going to offer it for $39. So that's how you can learn more about the Finkelstein factor. So there you go. So that's that. And on that note, perhaps we should do the draw for the Finkelstein factor. Now, I mentioned those prices. Thank you very much. I mentioned those prices, but those are prices for everybody else except 3 lucky people. So if you can get out your door prize tickets right now, and I'm going to pull 3 tickets for people who will win that online course. And the course is actually going to be delivered in January, so don't worry, there's no panic. And if you can't make the live sessions, don't worry, they're going to be recorded. We're going to work around it. So the first winner, it's a blue ticket. Who's got blue tickets? Perfect. 364. Does that sound good so far?
Yeah.
017.
Oh my God.
Marcella! Yay! Marcella is one of my friends since kindergarten. Congratulations. Okay. You can fill that in and just drop it off the desk up here when you're ready. Okay, and that was empty. All right. And this one is a red one. And the number is 254. Who's got 254?
Everybody.
Oh. 0. Who's got 0? 0. 4. 4. Okay, I swear it's not fixed. You can give me the bucks later. Congrats. Just fill it in and drop it off up there. Liz and Lance drove all the way from Meaford to be here today. Thank you, Liz and Lance. Okay, the final one is red. 254 037. Congratulations, that's great. So if I could ask you, when you get up here, if you could just fill that out there and drop it off at the desk right over there, and we'll get you all. That's perfect, congratulations. Excellent. All right. If anybody has any other questions, I'm going to be available for book signing and such and whatnot, and I think Steve just has a couple closing remarks. I'm sorry I didn't quite get to all the questions, but please feel free to speak to me after and I'll answer anything that you need to.
First of all, thank you very much for sharing your book with all of us and all of our friends. That was excellent. Thank you. So Marion already mentioned that she's going to be over there for a book signing. You sign. Ivan was worried. When am I going to get signed? When am I going to get signed? I said, trust me, I'll make sure it happens. Also, Marion would like to know if all of her friends could come up on stage and we'll take a group picture with everybody in the room, whether you have a book, whether you don't have a book, just for her Facebook. It'd be really fun. If you don't want to, that's fine. If anybody feels like doing a very, very small interview for Facebook Live, let us know if you want to do that as well. Grab some muffins, grab some tarts, grab some cookies on your way out, please. Either that or we have to bring them home. And I will have to eat them. I will have to buy a new set of pants. Which goes back to Marion's speech about at least. So while having dinner tonight, I poured half my dinner on my lap. My friend Nicole said, well, at least you can tuck your shirt in. This concludes the formal presentation in the segment tonight. I'm Steve Finkelstein. Thanks very much for coming, and meet Marion over at the table.
I would be remiss if I didn't thank my wonderful MC, Steve Finkelstein. He was the inspiration for the book and so much more. And I also want to thank a couple other people. I'd like them to just give a wave as I call their names. These are the people who have worked behind the scenes to